Okay, now we're on to Unit 1, Section 5. This is solving multi-step inequalities. Really, there's nothing new in this lesson. We're just combining a couple lessons together. We're combining inequalities with solving multi-step equations, okay? So I'm only going to do probably 4 problems, and then we'll practice it in class. All right, so number 1 is 6x minus 4 is less than or equal to 2x plus 12. To remind myself that I'm dealing with an inequality, instead of drawing a line down, I'm going to do a dotted line to remind myself, okay? I'm still going to go through those steps that I taught you in section 4. The first step is to see, is there anything that needs to be distributed or any denominator that needs to be cleared? In this case, there's neither, so I'm going to go in step 2. Step 2 is there anything on each side that can be simplified before we start moving things from side to side? In this case, there's not, because 6x minus 4 can't go together and 2x plus 12 can't go together. So I'm really on to step 3. And step 3 is to make sure that we get the x's together. We add or subtract things to get things on the same side. Now, like I told you in the last unit, I move a specific x on purpose. It doesn't really matter in the end, but I like to keep my variable positive. So I always move my smaller x from its side. You don't have to do it that way, but that's just the way. I don't like to have more negatives than I need. So my first step is I'm going to subtract, and remember, I have to subtract 2x. I can't split them apart by subtraction. They're stuck together until I divide, okay? So I'm subtracting 2x from each side. Notice where I lined up the 2x, the negative 2x. It's under the 6x because that's what it goes with. So 6 minus 2, or 6 plus negative 2, is 4x. That minus 4 next to it, we didn't do anything to. I have a dotted line that helps me to remember less than or equal to. And this became a big fat 0, and I'm left with a 12 on this side. I'm still not done with step 3 of solving multi-step equations or inequalities. And that step is to get rid of all your adding and subtracting. In this case, I don't want to move the 12 because then it would put too many things crowding that x. I want to move the minus 4 because that's what's crowding my x. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And that means I'm left with 4x. Again, I remember it's less than or equal to and not an equal sign because I did the dotted line. And 12 plus 4 is 16. Now it's time to separate the letter or the variable and the constant or the letter and the number. We need that 4 off the x. So what's going on between the 4 and the x? It's multiplication. It's the opposite operation. Division. Now this is the one that's forgotten the most. Remember, anytime you divide both sides of an inequality, check to see if you're dividing by a negative. If you are dividing by a negative, if the answer is yes, you have to flip that inequality sign. If not, we're done. And we can go x is less than or equal to 4. Now there is one more step with inequalities, if you recall, and that is to draw your number line, to draw a visual representation of the answer. So again, let's review. 4 goes in the middle. One integer below 4 is 3. One integer above 4 is 5. That's what I want to see on the number line. Then I have to decide open or close. Remember, the decision to do open or close depends on the inequality. So I'm highlighting that inequality. Underneath the inequality, if there is a line, it's a closed circle. So I'm putting a closed circle on the 4, and now I have to read this carefully and decide, what does this say? This inequality says that x is less than 4. So which number is less than 4? Is it the 3 or the 5? And the 3 is less than 4, so that's where we point our arrow. Okay, some of you still need some practice on that. That's why I continue to say that. Okay, let's go to number 2. Number 2, 3a, if you don't like a, make it an x, it doesn't matter, minus 15 is greater than 4 plus 5a. And I'm going to draw my dotted line so I don't forget, because what I've found is if I don't do a dotted line, I forget I'm dealing with an inequality and I accidentally make it an equal sign. And then I lose points at the end because I don't do my number line. Okay, first step. distribute or get rid of denominator. That's not here. Second step, simplify each side that can be simplified. Well, there's no combining like terms on the left side and there's no combining like terms on the right side. So then I have to deal with my adding and subtracting. This is where you can pick your order. You can add 15 to both sides to start with. You can subtract 3a. I have a pattern that I stick to, and I always do. I move my letter first and I move my smallest one. So in this case, my smallest letter is 3a. In front of the 3, now this is where people get mixed up. Look in front of the 3. That's the sign we're looking for, not that subtraction after it. That's on the 15. In front of the 3 is an invisible plus. So that means we need to subtract 3a from both sides. Notice where I lined up the 3a. I put one on each side, but I lined them up under the other a. Okay? Well, plus 3a minus 3a, that's a big fat 0. So on the left side, we're left with a negative 15. You can say subtract 15, but negative 15 is the way we say it. I remember that it's a greater than sign because of my dotted line. I didn't mess with the 4, so I leave the 4. And 5 minus 3 is 2, so now I have a 2a. I still haven't finished dealing with my adding and subtracting because there's still an addition there. So again, I look in front of my 4. Why didn't I move my 15 over? I don't want to move my 15. I don't want to make my letter more crowded. I want it less crowded. So what needs to go? The 4. So I subtract 4 from both sides. Okay, so I have a negative 19. Again, use your calculator. Please be careful when you use your calculator that you do negative 15 minus 4. It is not negative 15 minus negative 4. You're putting an extra subtraction in there that doesn't appear in the problem, so be careful of that. Okay, this became a big fat 0, and then we have a 2a. Now it's time to do my last step. There's no addition or subtraction left, so we have to multiply or divide. In this case, we're going to divide both sides by 2. Now, most of the time, I don't like decimals. If it is an exact decimal, in other words, it's not a repetend, you can give it to me as a decimal. It is not incorrect. If it was a repetend, it would be incorrect. So this would be negative 9.5 is greater than. Now, before I move on, did I subtract? This is the step. Did I divide or multiply both sides by a negative? If the answer is yes, I have to flip the symbol. If the answer is no, I don't have to. In this case, the answer is no, and so I don't have to flip my symbol. I can keep my greater than. And then I have an A here. Now this is one I did on purpose with a decimal because I want you to see what I mean by putting the integers on each side. Now this is backwards. We're in the world of negatives, so that things are a little bit weird down here. Here's my negative 9.5. What integer is 1 above negative 9.5? And that's going to be negative 9. What integer is 1 below negative 9.5? Again, we're in the world of negatives, so that's going to be negative 10. Okay? Next question, open or closed circle? Well, there's no line under my inequality, so it's an open circle. Now, this is the part you have to be careful of. Look where your A is. A is less than. I'm going to highlight this thing here. A is on the small side of the inequality. It's not being eaten. So it's on the small side. That means A is smaller than negative 9.5, even though it's backwards, okay? If you wanted to rewrite it, that's fine, but be very careful that you take the symbol and flip that over too. So if A is smaller than negative 9.5, which number in this case is smaller than negative 9.5? And again, you got to be careful. We're in the world of negatives. I got this wrong originally in my notebook. I had to go back and fix it because I was going too fast and I wasn't thinking through. What number is less? Negative 10. So I'm going to point towards the negative 10. Okay? I am going to leave the rest. I think that's enough. Here's the 2 you could practice on your own. Number 3 is going to be 2 parenthesis x plus 3 is greater than 16. And number 4 is negative 3x plus 6. The whole thing over 2, that's a hint, is less than or equal to 12. Now I'm going to give you the answers. The number 3 is going to be x is greater than or equal to 5. And number 4 is going to be x is greater than or equal to negative 6. So let's see if you can get to those answers and graph them. If you try, again, don't spend for a long time, just see what you can do with them. And if not, tomorrow we'll work with you. And if you understand them, then you're ready to move on and do your classwork.